Today is Emerald Coast release day, and of course, that means it's time for a quick guide, in which we'll go over the best loadout, the best locations, and general best times for a successful hunt here on the new map. And I want to start with the loadout because I spent a lot of time going through a bunch of different combinations, experimented with all kinds of stuff throughout this early access, and I've ended up coming to the conclusion that the simplest option is the best. So what we are carrying as far as our weapons is a shotgun of some kind. I've got the 16 gauge, the 12 gauge pump from the base game will work just as well. The 7mm bolt action from the Hunter Power Pack, again you could go base game 7mm break if you don't have that DLC, the 243 for foxes, hog deer, axis deer, all that stuff, and the 22 long rifle. Now, you guys will probably know I spent a bunch of time with the drilling combo rifle, and I really liked it. But there's just that chance of, say, accidentally shooting a deer with the bird shot, or accidentally shooting, for instance, a stubble quail with a 9.3 round, and I'd rather avoid that. I think it's a really fun gun to hunt with, and when you're thinking about it, it's probably not a problem, but as it becomes part of your main loadout, I think it would be too easy to make that mistake, and I just didn't want to have that as a potential risk. Plus, with the 7mm, the Bantang go down well enough. The Rusa and Sandbar deer it takes down immediately, and because you can't lose the crocs to disappearing underwater, having something a little less powerful for something like that ends up working out just fine. The 7mm gets them down, and with the 9.3 it's only a single rifle round. The 7mm, at least the bolt action, gives you 3 opportunities for a shot. So next we move to my top 5 locations here on the Emerald Coast for a successful hunt, and I've basically ended up going with almost the entire map in different ways, but I'll explain that as we go along. So my first location is the Outback down here in the southwest. If you just look at the map, basically the only deserty area that you can see. This area is loaded with kangaroos and feral goats. There's lots of red fox and stubble quail around. There are red deer and fallow deer drinking at the different lakes, and at the northern end, you'll even get hog deer and sandbar deer. It's a really good spot, but especially if you're looking for kangaroos, which I imagine a lot of people hunting on the Emerald Coast are, this is the place to find them. Number 2 on my list is this area up in the northeast, basically the entirety of the Ruby Coast. There are Bantang all along the coast as well as inland. There are crocs and magpie geese basically around the entire border, specifically in these kind of mangrove forests. Anywhere that looks like this on the map, just kind of swampy. Tons of crocs and magpie geese in those areas. There's Rusa and Sandbar absolutely everywhere. Even hog deer, fallow deer, red deer. There's kangaroos actually on just the western side of the river here. Lots of wildlife, and even red fox and axis deer are in the area. But then moving to number 3, this particular area kind of just joined my top 5 on the Saturday stream we did because we hadn't really been here. This area in the northwest going up about to the end of the river, but really even continuing north to the northwest corner. There are just tons of Rusa deer and Sandbar deer up here. We had our first level 5 Rusa during the stream. That unfortunately ended up trolling, but just in the process, we spotted him, lost him, and then tracked like 5 or 6 different Rusa deer until we actually found the right one. And plenty of Sandbar deer, there's axis deer in this area, all kinds of stuff, just all through here. And we also have hog deer, stubble quail, and feral pigs up here. And the nice thing about it is, it's pretty open. Like, you've got these fields that allow you to see pretty far, and you're along the river. So you've always got that ability to scan across. Lots of things drink here too. Hog deer, fallow deer, probably axis deer as well will drink along the rivers. And by the way, if you're looking for the drink times here on this new map, check out Mel's Gaming's channel. She has species features for all the different new species, and the drink times and locations are listed there. So rather than extend the length of this guide and also go and find those things, because a lot of those zones I haven't even found, those videos will be a great reference for that. Moving on, we go down here to the southwest corner of the map. This was actually the location that we shot our big 5-old Sandbar deer, and once again there are Bantang all over. Lots of crocodiles, which you could maybe expect with the Saltfinger Shore area down here. Again, you've got this same thing like the swampy regions. They are loaded with crocs and magpie geese. Specifically in the mangroves, I didn't find any crocs down here on the beach, which was interesting because they are on the northern beach, but for me, they were mostly all through this area. There are, again, just Rusa and Sandbar everywhere, and also feral pigs, hog deer, red deer, and red fox once again. It's a little more of a jungle kind of vibe. You can't see nearly as far as that last location that's more wide open, but especially because of things like Bantang, there's always stuff to encounter as you're moving along. And finally, to round out my top 5 locations, we're going to look at basically the center of the map and the north center of the map. They're very similar, and I decided to lump them together. They're kind of these like hilly Australian jungle type of terrain areas. Every single deer species on the map are all through here. There's less roost deer than in some of the other areas, but they're still here. And keep in mind too, you can see some of these dark areas of the map. I've not explored every single square foot of it. There may be more roosta in the spots I've not been to, but from what I've seen, more of the other deer species than roosta. There's also this cool little feature, one of the only areas on the map that specifically got all these little lakes. Like largely you have rivers, big lakes, swamps and stuff. There's all these little lakes for things like hog deer, roosta deer, sandbar deer, whatever you want to hunt, drinking at those spots. And again, be sure to check out Mel's videos for the actual drink times and locations for all those different species. There are red fox through here too, though maybe not as much as in the Outback and some of the other spots. Generally though, this is just a deer heaven, and evidently as well as we go along, pretty good spot for feral pigs. 2 max weight ones, those are the only ones I've seen. So to recap, there are kangaroos in a number of different locations, but the absolute best spot is the Dry Bone Plateau down here in the southwest. Bantang are specifically on the east coast. Both the Ruby Coast and the Mangrove Coast are good for them. Deer are basically everywhere except for the southwest, and even again when you get towards the northern end of it, hog deer, sandbar deer, even fallow deer and red deer are around. Crocs and magpies are specifically in the swamps. Again, any area that looks like this, croc and magpie heaven. And stubble quail are in a number of locations, but for me, the best is in the Outback, kind of specifically because they're so small. One of the only areas you can spot them in the distance is those spots without much vegetation. So those are my top 5 locations and kind of a recap of where everything generally is. And again, it's not going to be too specific, everybody's map is going to vary anyway, but if you want to have success for a particular species, that should help you get steered in the right direction. And finally, times. I mentioned Mel's Gaming has the different videos for species features looking at the drink times. For me though, I haven't messed with drink times that much. I really haven't. I've had plenty of success just running around in the early morning and just going straight through till late afternoon, and that's actually what we did on Saturday's live stream. We ended up killing a bunch of stuff. I mentioned the troll roosta deer. There was actually another one, and a troll sandbar, and the coolest thing right at the end of the stream was a leucistic sandbar, and that was in his drink zone. So hunting drink zones absolutely can be worthwhile, but as I mentioned, we went along the entire time, and rarely is there a dull moment on this map. If you're moving around, you don't really need to be around water. You're going to encounter animals, and that's the great thing about this map. I love it. You don't have to hunt drink zones, but as we see there with the really cool looking rare, it certainly can be helpful to check in and go to those spots as well. So on that note, that's going to do it for this quick guide. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.